Emily cherished her solitude. Her small apartment, nestled in the heart of the bustling city, was her sanctuary. She relished the quiet evenings, the soft glow of lamplight on her book, the gentle hum of the city outside her window. It was a life of routine, predictable, and safe. She worked at the library, surrounded by the comforting silence of stories untold. Evenings were for reading, her comfortable armchair a haven from the world. She liked it this way, alone with her thoughts and her books. The antique wall clock, a gift from her grandmother, had always been silent. It was a cherished heirloom, a piece of history that connected her to her past. A beautiful piece with ornate carvings, it served as a decorative reminder of time's gentle passage. Its intricate details were a testament to the craftsmanship of a bygone era, until now. At the stroke of midnight, a heavy, resonant tick shattered the silence. It was as if the clock had suddenly come to life, asserting its presence in the quiet room. Emily jolted upright in her armchair, heart pounding. The unexpected sound had startled her from a deep reverie, leaving her breathless and confused. She stared at the clock, its pendulum swinging with newfound purpose. The rhythmic motion was almost hypnotic, drawing her in despite her unease. Each tick was a hammer blow against the quiet of her apartment. The sound reverberated through the room, filling the space with an oppressive presence. It was loud, intrusive, a violation of the sanctuary she had so carefully constructed. The once comforting silence was now replaced by a relentless ticking that seemed to mock her. The rhythm seemed to seep into her bones, a constant, unsettling reminder of something amiss. It was as if the clock was trying to tell her something, a message she couldn't quite decipher. Sleep eluded her that night. The ticking was relentless, a constant companion in the darkness. She lay awake, listening to the clock, her unease growing with each passing hour. The night stretched on, each tick marking the slow passage of time, a reminder of her growing anxiety. The whispers started subtly, like a faint breeze rustling through the leaves on a quiet night. At first, Emily dismissed them as the creaking of an old building, the natural settling of wood and stone, or perhaps the distant sounds of the bustling city echoing through her windows, blending into the night. But as the days turned into nights, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, almost as if they were gaining confidence. They seemed to emanate from the very walls of her apartment, weaving through the cracks and crevices, slithering through the air vents, seeping under the door, filling the space with an eerie presence. She would hear her name, a hushed murmur, just beyond the realm of clear understanding, like a secret she wasn't meant to know. Sometimes it seemed as if the whispers were trying to warn her, to tell her something important, something urgent. Other times they were filled with a chilling malice that sent shivers down her spine, making her feel as if she was being watched. Emily tried to ignore them, to convince herself that it was all in her head, a figment of her imagination. But the whispers persisted, growing bolder, weaving their way into her dreams, her waking moments, her every thought, until she could no longer escape them. Claire, Emily's colleague from the library, listened intently as Emily recounted her experiences. A woman of logic and reason, Claire initially hesitated, attributing Emily's anxieties to stress and overwork. But there was a tremor in Emily's voice, a haunted look in her eyes that gave Claire pause. She knew something was deeply wrong. "There have been stories," Claire said cautiously, her voice barely a whisper. "Rumors about your building, about that apartment." She went on to explain that previous tenants had reported similar experiences. Whispers, shadows, a feeling of being watched. Some had been driven to madness, others had simply vanished, their disappearances shrouded in mystery. Section 5. Facing the Darkness. Armed with the unsettling knowledge of her apartment's history, Emily found herself at a crossroads. She could try to ignore the whispers, to pretend that everything was normal, or she could confront the darkness that had seeped into her sanctuary, to demand answers from the shadows that haunted her. Fear gnawed at her, urging her to flee, to find solace elsewhere. But a newfound determination, a need to reclaim her life, spurred her forward. She would not be driven from her home, not by whispers, not by shadows. Emily decided to face her fears head-on. She would stay in the apartment alone and wait for the whispers to return. This time, she would be ready. Section 6. The Mirror's Gaze. The clock struck midnight. The deafening tick resonated through the apartment, each clang a hammer blow to Emily's resolve. She sat on her bed, facing the large antique mirror that adorned her bedroom wall. The whispers started, softer at first, then growing in intensity. Her name, a sibilant murmur, circling her, taunting her. Then, it happened. Her reflection in the mirror, once a perfect image, rippled, distorted. The face that stared back at her was not her own. It was a grotesque mockery, a mask of malice and hate. Its eyes, cold and empty, bored into her soul. A scream caught in Emily's throat, a strangled gasp of terror. Section 7. Vanished without a trace. The following morning, Claire arrived at Emily's apartment, her concern growing with each unanswered knock. The door creaked open, revealing an eerie silence. The apartment was empty. Emily's belongings remained untouched, her coat still hanging by the door, a half-finished cup of tea on the coffee table. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. The only sign of her presence was a single message, scrawled in shaky handwriting on the wall opposite the mirror. It read, "The whispers are real. The police were called, an investigation launched. But despite their best efforts, Emily's disappearance remained a mystery, another unsolved case in a city teeming with secrets." Section 8. A City of Whispers. The city, once a source of comfort and anonymity, now seemed to press in on Claire. The constant hum of traffic, the distant sirens, even the laughter of children playing in the park, all carried an undercurrent of menace. She couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister had taken root in the city, something ancient and evil. The whispers, once confined to the walls of Emily's apartment, now seemed to echo everywhere. In the rustling of leaves, the creaking of floorboards, the murmur of voices in a crowded room. They were a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface, a chilling testament to the city's hidden history. Section 9. The clock ticks on. Claire inherited Emily's apartment, along with the ornate antique clock that hung on the wall. She couldn't bring herself to part with it, not yet. It was a tangible link to her missing friend, a constant reminder of the mystery that haunted her. Every night, as the clock struck midnight, Claire would sit in Emily's armchair, listening to its heavy tick, waiting, hoping for some sign, some clue that would lead her to the truth. But the whispers remained silent, their secrets buried deep within the walls of the apartment. Section 10. A Legacy of Fear. Years passed, but the memory of Emily's disappearance lingered. The apartment building gained a reputation, whispered rumors spreading like wildfire. Tenants came and went, each one claiming to have experienced strange occurrences, unexplained noises, fleeting shadows. The building became a symbol of the city's dark underbelly, a place where the veil between reality and nightmare grew thin. Some dismissed the stories as the ramblings of the superstitious, but others knew better. They understood that some secrets were best left buried, some doors best left unopened. Section 11. The Unseen Guest. One evening, as Claire sat in her apartment, a cold draft swept through the room. The wind howled outside, making the windows rattle as if they were alive. The antique clock on the wall shuddered, its pendulum coming to a sudden halt. The silence that followed was deafening, amplifying the eerie atmosphere. A chill ran down her spine. She wasn't alone. The room seemed to grow colder, and the shadows in the corners deepened. Turning slowly, she saw him. Her breath caught in her throat as her eyes adjusted to the dim light. Standing in the shadows, his features obscured by the darkness, was a man. His presence was overwhelming, filling the room with an oppressive energy. He was tall and gaunt, with eyes that seemed to burn with an unnatural light. Those eyes bore into her, as if seeing straight into her soul. He smiled, a slow, cruel stretching of his lips, and Claire felt a surge of primal terror course through her. It was a smile devoid of warmth, filled only with malice. She should have listened to the whispers, he hissed, his voice a raspy whisper that seemed to slither through the air. The words were like ice, chilling her to the bone. Then, as quickly as he had appeared, he was gone, vanishing into thin air. The room felt emptier, yet the sense of dread lingered. Claire was left alone, trembling with fear, the echoes of his words ringing in her ears. She could still feel his presence, as if he was watching her from the shadows. The whispers had returned, and this time, they were closer than ever. They seemed to come from all around her, filling the room with an ominous murmur. Claire's heart pounded in her chest as she looked around in panic. The shadows seemed to move, shifting and swirling as if alive. Desperate, she clutched a pendant around her neck, whispering a prayer for protection. The whispers grew louder, almost deafening. Slowly, the room began to return to normal. The whispers faded, and Claire breathed a sigh of relief, though she knew the unseen guest could return at any moment.